I know when I was a new leader, if I didn't have the answer, I was so tempted to fake it.
Oh, yeah.
Like try to be the most confident, wrong person in the room and say, well, this is it. This must be it. But I realized when you do that, you actually cut at your credibility.
How do you think that impacts that person's leadership when they're trying something new consistently?
I mastered a phrase, especially in these situations. And that phrase is, I don't know, but let's figure it out together. What I see is a lot of people get hooked in creating a perfect plan, not a hypothesis. A perfect plan has all the answers, knows everything that's going to happen, and it's going to work perfectly, which never happens, ever, right? Like I work with, millionaires and sometimes even billionaires, and I can tell you almost every plan doesn't go to plan. You make that best guess, you take your first step, you check. That last part of the scientific method is to evaluate and adjust. To my leaders that I coach, I always say, hey, in your mind, put your lab coat on every day you walk into that office because you're a scientist today, my friend. And if you do that, you will learn and grow so much faster and have a lot more fun.
Most entrepreneurs wait for permission to be ready, to be perfect, to have all the answers before they start. Mitch Matthews calls BS on all of that. From sweeping floors at a bike shop to becoming a sought-after keynote speaker and coach, and working with names like Nike and NASA, Mitch has built a career around giving himself and others the green light to start small, stay curious, and figure it out as they go. In this episode, we are digging into why beginner energy is a superpower, why imperfect action beats waiting for clarity, and how you can build a business and a personal brand that grows with you. All right, Mitch, we are so excited to have you on Not Nice Clever today. I was looking over some of the notes and you said something that really spoke directly to me. And it's something we talk about a lot here on Not Nice Clever. We asked you to share some things that you cannot shut up about. And you said, giving yourself permission to be a novice.
Yep.
Giving yourself permission to start small.
Yeah.
And giving yourself permission to not have all the answers.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
It's so good. We always say permission granted here on Not Nice Clever.
I love that.
Because we realized, especially I started out as a teacher. I don't know if you know this about me, but I was a middle school teacher. And I realized that permission is really fake. There's not real permission because my students would ask me, hey, can I go get a drink of water? Can I go to the bathroom? And I was like, I just say yes and then they could do it. That's so interesting. Permission is not even real, I don't think.
Right. Exactly. Especially as adults, but it's that thing of we do learn that we should ask permission, which in a middle school, elementary school, even high school situation, that's probably good, right? We want to honor teachers. But that's a great example of where that starts to work into our mental DNA. And then as adults, we start to wait for somebody else to give us that permission. And I do think it's one of the great cheat codes of great leaders, great entrepreneurs, globe changers, is not waiting for permission all the time, but say, hey, why not? And why not me? So let's start. Right. And I love the three that you picked too, because I'm a coach. I'm a speaker too, but I'm a coach. And I'm expensive. So I only tend to work with really successful people. And it's funny because I think these things of, like, as an example, giving yourself permission to be a novice, that's important for everyone. But I actually think it's even more important for wildly successful people. Yes. And I know you have a lot of very successful people that are in your audience, right? And I think sometimes people say, well, if you're successful, you don't have to be a novice anymore. It's like, well, actually, that's dangerous, right? I always say, success can actually be dangerous when we stop giving ourselves permission to be a novice at things, because it's very alluring. When you have success in an area, whether it's a career track, whether it's an organization, there's a real temptation to not get yourself in situations where you don't have it all together, where you don't have all the answers, all of those things. Yep. But where we tend to grow the most is when we give ourselves time and space to be new at something, to not have all the answers, to delve into areas where we might try, whether it's a new strategy in business or just taking a freaking cooking class or doing yoga. Like this, I try to do one thing a year where I give myself permission to be a novice. One of those couple of years ago was yoga, which it's because I said that's something I said it wasn't my best day, but I'm like, yoga's stupid. I don't need to do yoga. Yoga's dumb. But I used to be a martial artist, so I could like do the splits, all that stuff in that era of my life. When
Yep.
I said yes to yoga, I could barely touch my kneecaps, like my flexibility was all gone. So I'm like, yoga's stupid. I don't get it. Everybody's like, nobody's talking. Why does this work? And then 3 months in, it was one of the greatest gifts I'd ever given myself. But I had to be willing to be a novice. And in that case, I had to be willing to really not be good at something for a
It's
while.
so interesting because I know going into a yoga class can be really intimidating, especially when
It
those people
can.
go every single day or week or whatever, and they've been doing it for years before.
Exactly. Yeah, when there's people beside you touching their tops of their feet to the tops of their head, and I'm
Yes.
like, I can barely touch my ankle, like,
Yep.
But I think that that's the beauty of it, but I do think, and I'm guessing your audience, wildly successful people, right, probably get that, and it's sneaky, right, that we would achieve success in a given area, whether it's again in education or entrepreneurship, whatever we have that. People get to know us as that success. And then to walk into a room where we don't know what we're doing feels extra scary. Like for the person that's just a Netflix couch potato, we don't have to give them that permission to be a novice because they don't care. They're not pushing themselves. Nobody
Yep.
knows them as anything, all that stuff, right? But for that successful person, that feels like a bigger risk. And so that's why I always say you have to be really intentional with giving yourself that permission. And it doesn't have to be across the board. You don't have to try new things in every area of your life. It's still good to stay with many of those things that have brought you that success, but to intentionally choose areas to be new at something is so powerful and so freeing.
How do you think that impacts that person's leadership when they're trying something new consistently?
Yep.
Do you think that shows up in the way that they lead?
I absolutely do. And it goes with one of the other permissions that you grabbed a hold of that I love is giving yourself permission to not have all the answers. Right. I don't know about you, but when I was new in leadership, I thought the way that I brought the most value was to have all the answers.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of leaders are tempted that way. And a lot of leaders get promoted to a position because they are knowledgeable, because they have been successful in a certain role. But once you start leading a team, as an example, you want to attract people who are wildly talented, who are also successful. Sometimes they do want the quick answer. Sometimes they do want the solution from you. And sometimes I always say, hey, there are going to be times where the building is on fire and you need a quick answer. Like, absolutely. But there are absolutely some times, even when we have a solution, to say to the person, hey, what do I think I should do here? What do you think I should do? And to say, well, I have some ideas, but what do you think? Right. To
Mhm.
allow them to own that next step. That could very well be that they might have some ideas, but they also have some fear around not going the way they'd hoped, or maybe looking like, they're making a mistake, those kinds of things. But to offer ownership, to invite them into the process, to hold them as capable as leaders is one of the greatest gifts that we can give. But I also think, and the importance of trust when it comes to leadership, right? It's so funny. I know when I was a new leader, if I didn't have the answer, I was so tempted to fake it. Right?
Oh,
Like just
yeah.
to grasp at stuff and just say, well, like try to be the most confident wrong person in the room and say, well, this is it. This must be it. But I realized when you do that, you actually cut at your credibility. The only person that believes you're being credible is you. Everybody else in the room knows you're faking it. But what's amazing is to use that permission and a phrase that I love. And I use this. I have an amazing team. I hire really talented people. It's a little intimidating sometimes, but I mastered a phrase, especially in these situations. And that phrase is, I don't know, but let's figure it out together. So if somebody comes to me and says, hey, what do you think we should do? And I don't know, I love that phrase to be able to go, I don't know, but let's figure it out together.
Yes.
And that also is so freeing because it does hold that team member up This also works
Mhm.
with teenagers, by the way, right? It also holds that person as capable. You are showing that, one, I trust you enough to be real with you, and
Mhm.
I trust you enough to be a part of the solution. And what's amazing about that is that when leaders do that, instead of cutting at their credibility, it actually builds credibility. It actually builds loyalty, engagement, all of those things. And so it's amazing how those two permissions go so well together.
Yeah. I think growing up, you are always in the same level with people, right? Like you all start
Yeah.
T-ball together,
Right.
right? And growing up, you think that that's the way it's going to be forever, but once you get to become an adult and you are in leadership positions, things change. You're not all growing at the same pace,
Right.
and it's going to feel more uncomfortable in a situation like that because you're not starting day 1 of T-ball at the same time.
Yep. That's
And
exactly right.
as adults, that feels so uncomfortable. How do you let go of the discomfort?
Well, let's just talk about all my issues, okay?
Yeah, yeah,
I am
please.
actually a, recovering perfectionist.
Oh
Now, how about
gosh.
you? But I got issues, right? I'm not perfect, but I'm getting better every day, right? And it's funny, I would imagine, again, your audience is very successful people, so there's probably a number of perfectionists in your
Oh,
crew, right?
absolutely. Yes.
And there might be some people right now that are listening to this like, "Oh, that's not me." It's like, that's fine, but perfectionism most often gets misdiagnosed as procrastination.
Mhm.
Because what's interesting is that when people hear perfectionism, they assume that perfectionists have a perfectly organized desk. Their kitchen should be on the cover of Elle Decor. Like, everything's in its place,
Yeah.
right? But perfectionists, we're pile people. Right?
Mm.
Because you'll go to a meeting and you'll come back from that meeting with a memo or a participant's guide or an agenda, and you come back to your desk and you don't have the perfect place to put that thing. And so you put it on the corner of your desk and you tell yourself, when I have the perfect place to put that, I'm going to file it away. But for right now, I'll just put it right there because
I'm
I won't
feeling a
forget it.
little called out right now, to be honest, Mitch.
Well,
Looking
I tell
around
you what, if my
here like,
camera panned over, my corner pile is right there, right? And it's that thing of like you come back to from another meeting, pile goes higher, and then
yep.
you hear somebody's going to come into your office or they're going to visit your desk, and you take that pile and you put it underneath your desk in a box or a
Oh, yeah.
bag or something like that, right? We're pile people. And it's because we're waiting for the perfect place to file things. It's also the reason why most people think they're procrastinators, but they're actually perfectionists. Is perfectionists tend to be really good at starting stuff, but finishing stuff is hard because it's not perfect yet. And so what we need a deadline. So it could very well be that report or that paper or that, meeting agenda is due at midnight on Tuesday, and you're sending that thing at 11:59 because you need that deadline to finally push you and say, well, it's not perfect, but it's done, send, right?
Mhm.
The reason why I bring that up is that I know for me, what often starts to happen when I start to move into new places or when I start to think about trying something new or even going to the next level, right? Like as a leader, going to the next level, whether that's performance, engagement, hitting your numbers, whatever, oftentimes what that means is trying at least one thing that's new.
Mm.
And so for me, my inner perfectionist starts chirping when I start to think about trying new things to go, okay, what am I going to look like? Right? I won't be able
Mhm.
to do that perfectly. And so what I have to do, I'm a big fan of mantras and better questions. So, in my case of I don't have to have all the answers, having that go-to question of or phrase of I don't know, but let's figure it out together. That pairs well with that challenge. With perfectionism or trying something new and my self-talk, self-dialogue when it comes to that, and my inner perfectionist starts chirping to say, oh, but it's not going to be perfect. People might figure out that you're not perfect, all these things. I'll just say, hey, I'm going to focus on progress, not perfection.
Yep.
And those kinds
We
of
say that
phrases
often
just,
here at Not
yeah,
Nice Clever. Yes.
it's that
Progress
it
over
just helps to
perfection.
quiet that inner perfectionist to the point of being able to say, okay, I can step into this. And then we always say our target is excellence, not perfection.
I love that.
Yeah.
If I think about Not Nice Clever, our podcast, we've done over 300
Yes.
episodes at this point, and if
Amazing.
we were waiting on being perfect or knowing everything about
Oh,
podcasting, we still wouldn't have started.
a hundred
Today, we
percent.
still
And
wouldn't have started.
And maybe you have this experience. It offends me every time, totally ticks me off. But I'll have those episodes where, like, you know what? My wife will say, "How was the episode?" And I'll say, I'd give it a B, maybe a
Yeah.
B plus. Like, it wasn't my favorite episode, but it was good, but it wasn't great. And those are the ones when I bump into somebody or we get emails. They're like, "Oh my gosh, that's the episode that changed my life." And I have to watch my face because my face is that one, you know?
Right. But
So you just
everyone
have to
in the
let
audience
go.
has their own
A
experiences
hundred
and the own
percent.
people that they relate to. So,
Yep.
yeah, you might not have learned much in that conversation necessarily, but you created space to have the conversation, which also impacted the audience and the person who needed to
Exactly.
hear that message. So, yes, I completely agree with feeling like progress over perfection is the way to go because, like I
Yep.
said, 300 episodes in, I don't feel like we have a handle on this yet.
That's right. And it's one of those where it's like, I don't know about you, but as a podcaster too, like I have to keep that mantra of progress over perfection
Yeah.
because if I ever feel like I've got it all together and I've figured it all out, that's probably the day I need to stop podcasting.
Right. There's always something to improve on, to
Yep.
learn, to grow. Yeah, for sure. I'm thinking a little bit about burnout, which is a huge
Yeah.
problem that we hear from our audience members. And if you're trying something new all the time, if you're kind of putting yourself in uncomfortable situations, is that adding to your plate? Does that feel like more
Right.
opportunity to get to the place of burnout?
Yeah, that's such a great question. It's funny on my podcast. I got to interview a neuroscientist, Anne-Laure Lecoumphe. She's French. I had to work on that. Have you ever had guests where you're like, "Oh, I'm
Oh,
gonna have to
yeah.
work on that name"?
Yeah.
Anne-Laure Lecoumphe. I still say it. Sometimes I say it to my wife because I'm so proud of being able to say it. Right. But Anne-Laure is really. She's got an amazing story in that she was an executive at Google and she thought she was burnt out and burnt out to the point where she quit. And that's where she got into neuroscience. She went back to school and really has had an incredible career since. But what's interesting is that as she started to understand the brain more and more, she realized that what she was experiencing was not burnout, but what she was experiencing was burnout's little cousin that nobody seems to talk about, and that is being bored out. And being bored out feels a lot like burnout. And it often is people that are very busy, but they get bored out because they're doing the same tasks over and over. Oftentimes, those tasks, which there are usually many, right?
Mhm.
Those tasks, they figured out exactly what it takes to be successful and do that. They do those tasks over and over again. But the reason why they start to experience bored out, which does feel a lot like tired, being burnout, which it manifests itself as fatigue, frustration, lack of engagement, all of those things. The reason why people start to experience being bored out is the lack of new things. The lack of, as
I
scientists put
kind
it,
of knew
the
you were
lack
gonna
of
say this,
novelty.
Mitch.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And so what I love about that is that's why I say try something, give yourself permission to try something new intentionally from time to time. It's like, I'm not saying this week do a cooking class and next week sign up for a class in diesel mechanics and then next week, take a yoga class that you've never
Yeah.
taken before. Like it's not new all the time and just completely different things, but give yourself seasons of introducing intentional novelty. And it is amazing what that will do, especially if there's any chance what you're feeling and what you're thinking is burnout might, in fact, be bored out. That novelty, just that intentional burst of novelty from time to time, can be a game changer.
Yeah. I love that. From a brand strategist perspective, if
Yeah.
you're trying something new, you should be sharing the journey with your
Yes.
audience.
Right.
So I want to see people on their Instagram stories saying, I'm going to my first yoga class today and I'm feeling a little intimidated, right? Because
That's
there's
exactly
people in the
right.
audience who are saying, oh my gosh, I've been wanting to do that, but I'm so intimidated. I don't know. I don't know what to
Yep.
wear or what to bring or like how to set up or what those words are that they're going to say. They're going to use a new language
Exactly.
in there and I'm not going to know what to do. And you
Yep.
have all of that nervous energy and you're not starting, but seeing someone else
Yep.
do it might encourage them or might
It's so
give them
true.
the
And
confidence.
yep. I love this. And this is such an important subject. I've been a coach and a speaker since 2002, but we've been training up other coaches and speakers since 2006. And one of the things I talk about, especially as a recovering perfectionist, and it's exactly, how this can apply to building a brand, is oftentimes people aren't waiting to see if you're perfect because pretty much they know you're not, right? But
Right.
what's amazing, what I've found, and I think it's so true to what you're saying, is when you teach from the journey, you never run out of content. When you
Mhm.
teach from the destination, you do.
Yeah.
But when you teach from the journey, what's also beautiful is, and I know you've seen this too, is that people are so much more willing to celebrate your wins when they also know about some of your setbacks from time to time.
Yes.
And that's where it can feel like a risk to be real, to name when you're uncomfortable or afraid or, trying something new and feel like an idiot in the room.
Yep.
That can be so powerful. One of my favorite examples of this is one of my keynotes is on worry and overcoming worry because I am a recovering perfectionist, but I'm also a recovering worrier, right? So I teach on it because I need to remember it every day. And I'll never forget, I think it was in Florida, and I was going to be keynoting to this audience of like 500 people the next day. And that night I got to my hotel. It was late. I was tired, but I threw up kind of one of those posts from the journey. I said, here's irony. I'm keynoting on overcoming worry tomorrow morning at 9. And tonight, I'm tempted to worry, right? What was funny is I posted that, thought it was hilarious, went to bed, got to the event venue the next morning, and a couple of the people that were attending the event saw me, came running over to me, and they were like, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" And I'm like, "What's happening? Why? Why?
Uh-huh.
What are you concerned about?" They're
Yeah.
like, "We saw your post last night. We were so concerned for you." And I was like, "Why?" And they were like, "Well, we were worried you were worried." And I said, "Oh, I'm sorry. I said I was tempted to worry." And that's something I'll talk about in my keynote, that being tempted to worry is different than worrying itself. I slept like a baby. And they're like, "Oh my gosh, that's amazing." Right. But that's such a powerful example of, I mean, they literally were engaged to the point of worrying
Yes.
for me, which I thought was ironic and kind of funny that here I
You're
was
like, "You're
keynoting
gonna
on
wanna
worry and
sit
I
through
was
this
inciting
entire
people
thing."
worrying.
Yes.
Right. Like, whoops, sorry, my bad. Right. But I mean, that's when you teach from the journey,
Yeah.
you create a family. And that's a beautiful thing.
And it gives your audience, speaking about giving people permission, it gives your audience permission to be more vulnerable with you,
Right. Yep.
and that creates a better relationship than
100%.
if they feel like they have to be perfect around you all the time.
Right. Exactly. If they know some of your flaws, yeah, they're like, "Oh, like when you do that thing," I'm like, "Yes, I'm very
Yes.
familiar." I love it.
Let's talk about how you share about building through trial and error, which
Yeah.
can be uncomfortable for a lot of people. A lot of our listeners are at the point where they're building teams
Yep.
and they have that maybe worry that they need to have all the answers like we talked about. But trial and error is something that you have spoken about.
Yeah.
How can leaders lean into trial and error if they're trying to build?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's interesting. I don't know about you, but I kind of geek out on history, and I love the number of stories where, that first endeavor, whether it's a business idea, whether it's a product concept, whatever it might be, oftentimes the best ones, the products that change the globe, often were first identified as a mistake. Right? So
Mhm.
part of it is to remember that. But I always say you want to lead and you want to build like a scientist. And what I mean by that is, in fact, we have a coach training and certification program, and our coaching model is called the scientific method of coaching because it's built on the scientific method. Now, I'm the first one to say I was a solid C minus science student in high school, right? Like
Yep.
my science teacher would think it would be hilarious that I was leaning on the scientific method now as a major part of my career and leadership experience, but it's absolutely true. And what I love about the scientific method is, when a scientist walks into the laboratory, they first say, what am I going to try to prove or disprove? Right? They clarify the truth. They're going to try to prove or disprove. Then they put together a hypothesis, which, Webster's dictionary defines a hypothesis as a well-educated guess,
Yes. Yeah.
a best guess. And I honestly think that, in my humble opinion, that's what we should actually call plans. Our
Right.
plans are a best guess. They're a best
Mhm.
guess at what we think is going to happen, right? And then what a scientist does is say, well, this is my best guess. Now I'm going to experiment. And they're going to try that thing that they think is going to work, right? And then if it goes the way they thought, that's great. But if it doesn't go the way they thought, that's great because they're still learning. And the importance is understanding that loop and moving through it as fast as possible so you
Yep.
can continue to learn and grow, right? What I see is a lot of people get hooked in creating a perfect plan, not a hypothesis. A perfect plan has all the answers, knows everything that's going to happen, and it's going to work perfectly, which never happens ever. Right. Like I
Yeah.
work with, millionaires and sometimes even billionaires. And I can tell you, almost every plan doesn't go to plan, right?
Right.
You
Yep.
make that best guess. You take your first step. You check. The other part, that last part of the scientific method, is to evaluate and adjust.
Yep.
It's built into the scientific method. It also has to be built into our leadership loops, our business strategies, all those things, because sometimes we're going to hit it out of the park right off the bat. That's fantastic when
Rarely.
those things happen, but it rarely happens, right? And what's exciting, I know about for me, is it's offensive at first and beautiful, second, is that most of the times our plans don't go the exact way that we thought, but sometimes even when that plan doesn't go the way we thought, it helps us uncover something even better.
Yes.
And so that's also where that perfectionism can get in because, boy, it's so tempting to wait till you have the perfect plan, right? And so you never take the step, you never start to experiment. So then you're never learning, you're never evaluating and adjusting.
You need all those data points to help you make the adjustments.
Yep. So I always say that's up to my leaders that I coach. I always say, hey, in your mind, put your lab coat on every day you walk into that office because you're a scientist today, my friend. And if you do that, you will learn and grow so much faster and have a lot more fun.
Absolutely. Because you gave yourself permission to try something that day. That's what scientists are doing. They're trying
Yep,
something. And
exactly.
they're
And they're
using
doing something,
they're
right? As
doing
opposed
something.
to thinking about doing something. And a
Yes.
lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of leaders get stuck in that thinking about doing stuff as opposed to doing stuff. Those people don't tend to be the globe changers.
Yep. It's so funny because I actually have a program called the Content Lab,
Nice.
and it has like little flasks and like
That's
scientific,
awesome. I love it.
yeah, like as the
Beakers and
branding.
Bunsen
Yes,
burners.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And the
That's
reason
great.
is people are so afraid of creating content because
Yep.
they're going to be embarrassed because their family
Yep.
and friends are going to make fun of them. But I created the Content Lab with this exact idea in mind, Mitch, that, hey, this is just a lab. We're just going to
Can try
show
stuff.
up. We're going to try
Yep.
stuff. We're going to gather data and we're going to adjust and see what happens next.
That's so good.
And that's literally the premise of the program because people are stuck in that perfectionist place.
Yep.
And those people are the ones that are going to get no views because they're not
Right.
showing up at all. And I'd rather you
Exactly
get
right.
300 views
Yep.
and be like, how can I get 400 tomorrow?
Right. Exactly. It's funny. I know for me, my grandma Matthews, when I would start to get into that loop of what are people going to think, Grandma Jessie would always say, boy, people don't think about you near as much as you think they do.
Yep.
And that's, so often I would labor, would just iterate and not hit publish on something because I was worried about what people think. And then Grandma Jessie's wisdom would come in and go, wait, the people that need to see it will see it. The people that don't like it, that's fine. They'll disengage. But boy, I'm betting this will probably attract or at least encourage at least one person. So publish, let's go and let's see what
go.
happens. So I love that.
Exactly.
That is so great. That's a lab because
It's the lab.
that is the right attitude. I love that. That's how you would equip people. That's perfect.
Yep. So let's talk a little bit about criticism.
Oh boy.
Because as a leader, especially a leader who's willing to try things,
Yep.
understands that you don't know all the answers all the time, Do you get pushback or criticism at points? Is there a specific example of a time when you've dealt with that you can help our audience through?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, and it's funny because it's one of those I have my own organization, but like you are a content creator, right? You have a
Yeah.
podcast. So what's beautiful about doing things like this, and I'm guessing a lot of your people put out content in different ways, whether it's
Yep.
for their own business or whether it's with their team or whatever, that whenever you put out content, as an example, there is a very good chance it's going to click and register with certain people and it's going to tick off or offend or be misunderstood by a group of people, right?
Yep.
And I always say, in many ways, when you're putting out content, let it attract the right people and repel the wrong people, and be okay with that. Like,
Yes.
it's funny because my other podcast is called Dream, Think, Do, and that sounds almost whimsical. Like some people are instantly offended with just the name because it has dream in it, right? And there are people that are just instantly like, oh, that's all rainbows, butterflies, and little ponies. Like, how cute is that? You're adorable. That's a cute little podcast, right? And I get it. And I can say in my heart of hearts, I can say, hey, I don't think we're for you, and that's okay.
Yeah.
And what's amazing is that's so freeing, right?
Yes.
Now, I will say that sometimes criticism comes from people that might be a little bit more like people that are in our audience, right? And so a couple things happen. One is I have to give myself permission to feel all the feels,
Mm,
right? Like there was a part of me, especially the perfectionist part of me, that says I should be impervious. Those things should never hurt me. But
yeah.
when they did, then it got in even deeper because not only was I hurt by something somebody said, but I was hurt by being hurt. And that's like a
Yes.
double whammy, right? Which sucks. And that wears you out even faster. And so, sometimes when criticism comes in and when you have a big podcast like your podcast, what Dream Think Do, there's going to be chances that somebody's going to come, especially in the world that we live in where, we've weaponized feedback, right? And sometimes it's digitized, and sometimes that's also, acts that no one can control and all that stuff. That's a whole other thing. But when criticism comes in, oftentimes I'll say, hey, is that somebody that I care about? Is that somebody I know? Is that even somebody that's remotely close to our audience? Because I will say, if somebody's just immediately a jerk, I'll say, "Hey, I got no time for that. I can
Mhm.
just wipe that off." It might get in a little bit, but I'm like, "Okay, I let one person down, but I don't know who they are. They don't know my mom's name, so I don't really care," right? Like,
You
they don't
don't
know
know
my
my mom's
kids, they
name.
don't know my wife. I
Yeah.
don't really care, right? But if it is someone that's a little bit closer, or maybe it's someone that is truly in our audience, in our family, like somebody that's engaged with our content, but they let me know I said something they didn't agree with. What I try to do, after feeling, give myself 5 minutes to feel all the feels, but then say, okay, is there any truth in what they're saying? And in some cases, it might only be 2% truth, but it's like, all right, is there any truth in what they're saying? And for me, I lean in, I ask that question. Sometimes I pray about that question. Like, is there any truth I need to be paying attention to? Is there anything I need to own? Because, hey, I'm far from perfect and I get really excited about topics. So sometimes I'll say stuff and I'll forget, like, oh,
Yeah.
that might be offensive, And so do I need to own anything? And then also, do I need to engage with this person? My wife actually uses a phrase. She works in full time ministry and she uses a phrase that I absolutely love. And that is, I've given myself permission to not have an opinion about that.
That's a good one.
Because I don't know about you, but I think right now we all feel like we need to have an opinion on everything because
Yes.
everybody seems to.
Yep.
So, like when something happens, whether it's something on social media, whether it's a world event, whatever, we instantly feel like I need to have an opinion about that.
Yep.
And sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. And so, my wife, what's beautiful about that is she gives herself 24 hours to say, hey, in this, like right now, I don't need to have an opinion about that. I'm giving myself
Yeah.
permission and space to not have an opinion about that. And so sometimes when complaints come in, it's like, you know what? That can totally be your opinion, but I'm giving myself permission to not have an opinion on that.
This
And
whole
that is
episode
a powerful, powerful thing. Yeah,
this whole episode's about permission, and I love it.
it
So
is.
good. Yeah.
I love it.
Okay, a couple things before we wrap up, before we get to our not nice advice segment.
Yes.
I want you to tell our audience about your coaching program. How could they work with you? What does that look
Yeah, I
like?
love it. So, we've been training up coaches and speakers since 2006. I went through a coach training program, big name coach training program. Kind of thought they would teach me how to do the business. They taught me how to coach like confidently, but there was no business training. So I floundered, and then I started to do some things right, something we call the six-figure sequence, and started to actually figure out the business side of it. People started to take notice of that, and they started to seek me out, which is great. And so we've been able to help thousands of coaches and speakers. But in the last few years, we've been doing something that I'm wildly excited about, and it's a niche. It's a very small niche, and I know sometimes people get nervous when you find a very small niche, but I found a
Yeah.
niche that we just thrive with. We call it a micro niche. What's up, niches? Right. But like I love this niche. And that is it's something we call the authority bridge. And it is for leaders, people that are successful in their careers, and they want to add coaching or speaking to what they're currently doing. Doesn't
Mhm.
necessarily mean they're going to leave what they're doing. They might just add it to, and it could just be a side thing. And for some folks, are they have so much success and they love it so much, then they do it full time. But we've put together. It's a 3 phase process. It's very intentional, very doable. It kind of speaks to what Ann Lore talks about as like introducing some novelty, but at a reasonable place. So the 3 phases of it are what we call first is covered authority. And that's where you start to develop your messaging, put out content, but you don't actually need to announce you're a coach or a speaker or, some entrepreneur, those types of things. You just start putting out content. You start experimenting with content to see what resonates. What do you like talking about? All those things. And then over that time, you're building your business when nobody knows it. And then phase two is what we call emerging authority. And that's when you add coaching, speaking, or consulting to what you're currently doing. And you do it in a way that doesn't blow up your life, but in a way that enhances your credibility. And whatever track, whatever role that you're doing, you can do it in a way that actually enhances your credibility, your standing, all of that. It's exciting to see it when it happens. And then the third phase, and not everybody has to move into this third phase, but the third phase is what we call independent authority. And that's when somebody decides, you know what, I'm going to go for this full time. Some of our folks with emerging authority, they generate an extra 50 to 100,000 or more a year, and they're going to probably do that for the rest of their lives. They're happy with that. That's great.
Yeah.
Some it's a lot more than that, those types of things. So that kind of thing, especially for those people that really are good at what they do, and they don't necessarily
Mhm.
want to blow up their life, but they want to have more impact, or they want to have more income, or they want to leave a legacy that's different than just their career track. And so it's huge. And it's not for everybody, but we did put some training together because for a lot of those folks, it starts with going, well, that would be great, but how do I find time for that?
Yep.
Like,
Yeah.
I could add something new, but right now it's kind of like you were talking about. Like, I am barely holding on right now.
Yes.
I've got kids and I've got a full career and all those things. So we did actually put a special training together, and it's called Finding Time for Your Next Chapter. And it's a $97 training, but people can go to mitchmatthews.com/time.
We'll
And
drop
then
it in the
just
show
enter the
notes.
coupon code. Yeah, you can enter the coupon code clever. And
Okay.
so your
Got it.
folks will get it for free.
Oh, that's amazing. Thank you so much, Mitch.
Yeah,
We'll definitely drop that in the show notes for
absolutely.
everyone. Definitely check it out. I'm sure there's a lot of people in the Clever Crew who would benefit from something like that because they're really successful at the things that they're doing and they are looking to make more impact and maybe a little bit more income too. Why not?
Right.
So, the question, not nice advice.
Yes.
It says, I know I need to network to grow my business, but I'd rather eat glass than go to another awkward event.
Oh, yes.
Is there a way to connect without draining my social battery at networking
Mm.
events?
Oh, man, I love this question. Do you have their name, their first name?
No name on this one.
Okay,
No
all right.
name.
Well, whomever it
Okay.
is, all right?
Yes.
We've talked about me being a recovering perfectionist where, all that, but I'm also an introvert. And I know you guys are passionate about talking about this too, but I am an introvert who's learned to do extroverted things, right? Being a speaker, I always say it's God's great sense of humor that I am an introvert and my day job involves going to rooms of 500 strangers, right? Like that's
Yes.
hilarious. So, networking events, I'm the same way. Like, I would much rather sit in my office and create in my
Mhm.
quiet little office than go to a networking event. Chewing glass, I get it, right? But one of my mentors in the entrepreneurial world, he gave me some of the best advice because even as introverts, like I know I like humans, I really do, but I got to take care of my inner introvert. And walking into a room of strangers is not what I naturally want to do. And my mentor very wisely said, I know you're an introvert and I know you like people, but you're an introvert and this kind of thing wears you out. He said, I'm going to challenge you. And I said, okay, what's that? And we were actually getting ready to move into a room of, I think, probably 200 people I did not know. And he goes, hey, I'm going to encourage you. Focus on being interested, not interesting.
Mhm.
And I got to admit, I was so amped about walking into the room of 200 strangers. I'm like, what the F does that mean? And he's like, hey, so right now, your default is to walk into that room and be interesting to the people that you meet. And he said, that for you is exhausting. He said, there are some people who love that, whether they're extroverted or just narcissists. They love to talk about themselves. They love to be the
Yeah.
most interesting person in the room. But generally, when you meet someone and all they do is talk about themselves, all you want to do is get out of that conversation. And he's like, as an introvert, if you feel like that's the standard, all you want to do is get out of that because you don't
Yeah.
want to talk about yourself. He's like, you like to put the spotlight on anybody else that you're talking with. He's like, embrace that. Don't be interesting, be interested. Get curious. Ask people questions and don't ask them the normal questions of, so what do you do? Where are you from? Ask them questions like, hey, what are you working on that's interesting you right now? What's something
Yeah.
you're excited about? What's something you're looking forward to? He's like, get curious. He said, when you start to get interested, you will authentically be the most interesting person in the room. And I can tell you for me, there are days where it still feels like, when I'm at the door, like ready to
Yes.
grab that handle and go into the room, I'm thinking of chewing glass, right? But once I walk into that room and I embrace that and I get curious, it is amazing how much more energy I have and how much more energy I walk away with having been interested because again, it gets the spotlight off of me and
Off of
onto
you.
somebody else.
Yeah.
Often what I will do is I'll also meet someone within that time that needs to meet somebody else in that room. So I realize I love puzzles. I love games. So I'm like, you know what? I love to connect the dots too. So if I find somebody that needs to meet somebody else in the room, that also energizes me and
Yep.
things like that. And so sometimes what I will do is I'll have two goals. One, be interested, not interesting. And then my second goal is connect at least two people.
There you go.
And what's beautiful about that is, I don't know about you, but as an introvert, all I want to do, there's a part of my heart that always just wants to get out of the room. So I need to set parameters to say, all
Have a
right, what am I going
goal.
to try to
Yeah.
accomplish? Right.
Yes.
And I used to try to set a goal of find at least one person that might be a client or find at least one person that might be, a business partner and things like that. Those didn't tend to work all that well because you never
Mhm.
know. Like some of those
Yeah.
people that you just meet become friends for life and clients for life. And other people that you think are going to be that guy or that gal don't ever email you back. Right. So, like,
Yeah.
that was harder as an end goal. So I turned it into a game and said, all right, I'm going to at least connect two people in the room. So I started to get interested. I started to figure out what people were working on. And then once I could connect two people, that was my permission to skate. And
I
what's
love it.
beautiful is if you are the connector in the room, people want to know you. And so, I walked out of a room being interesting and I walked out of the room being a connector. And generally, if I do that, people return my emails and my business grows. And I walk away with some energy too.
What great advice. Thank you so much, Mitch. We appreciate you being on today.
I'm honored. I love what you guys are doing, and
Thank
it's great to get to have the conversation. So thanks so much.
Thanks for joining us on Not Nice, Clever.
Remember to follow Not Nice Clever wherever you listen to audio.
And if you haven't already, drop that 5-star review.
Share your takeaways. Tell us your story. We love to hear it.
Signing off, your not so nice, but oh so clever besties that mean business.
See you soon.